The village of Oakhaven nestled in the valley like a secret whispered by the ancient hills, a place where time seemed to slow, and the air always carried the scent of pine and rich earth. Above it, the sky stretched vast and untamed, a canvas for countless stars that, on clear nights, felt close enough to touch. This was Ilara's world, and she loved every quiet, starlit corner of it. Ilara lived in a small stone cottage on the edge of the village, its windows facing east, catching the first blush of dawn, and more importantly to her, offering an unobstructed view of the night sky. Her days were spent in the gentle rhythm of her pottery studio, hands shaping clay into mugs and bowls, vases and whimsical figurines that captured the essence of Oakhaven's quiet beauty. Each piece she crafted seemed to hold a little piece of her soul, imbued with the warmth of her spirit and the soft glow of her imagination. But it was the nights that truly belonged to Ilara. After sweeping the last speck of clay dust from her studio floor and brewing a cup of chamomile tea, she would settle into her favorite armchair by the window. There, wrapped in a hand-knitted shawl, she would watch the stars ignite, one by one, across the velvet expanse. For Ilara, the stars weren't just distant pinpricks of light. They were storytellers, ancient observers, and sometimes, if you listened closely enough, they offered the gentlest of whispers. She called them Starlight Whispers, tiny, hopeful nudges that guided her thoughts, soothed her worries, and sometimes hinted at dreams yet to unfold. She'd grown up in Oakhaven, a child with her nose perpetually tipped towards the heavens, weaving tales of cosmic adventures and celestial friendships. Her grandmother, a wise woman with eyes that sparkled like distant galaxies, had nurtured this fascination, teaching Ilara to distinguish constellations and to feel the quiet magic that hummed just beneath the surface of the world. "The stars," her grandmother used to say, her voice soft as silk, "they know your heart, little one. And sometimes, if you ask just so, they'll whisper back." Ilara never forgot those words. Every night, before the moon reached its zenith, she would make a quiet wish, a silent conversation with the heavens. Sometimes, it was for a particularly challenging pottery piece to turn out just right, other times for rain to nourish the village gardens, or for the well-being of a friend. But lately, her wishes had become a little more personal. A longing, soft and undefined, had begun to stir within her, a whisper not from the stars but from her own heart. It was a yearning for connection, for a kindred spirit to share the quiet beauty of her world, to perhaps watch the starlight whispers with her. Oakhaven was a close-knit community, filled with kind faces and familiar routines. The baker, Mrs. Gable, with flour perpetually dusting her apron, always had a warm smile, and the village gossip. Mr. Henderson, the gruff but secretly soft-hearted postman, knew everyone's stories. Ilara had friends, dear ones who understood her quiet nature, but none quite shared her particular brand of starlight dreaming. She was content, truly, but a small, hopeful corner of her heart wondered if there was someone out there, just waiting for the right moment to step into her orbit. One crisp autumn morning, a ripple of excitement, unusual for the tranquil village, began to spread through Oakhaven. It started with Mrs. Gable, of course, who, while handing Ilara a freshly baked loaf of sourdough, lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Did you hear, dear? The old Willowbrook house? It's been bought." Ilara's eyebrows rose in surprise. Willowbrook House was a grand, though somewhat neglected, property on the other side of the village, famed for its ancient weeping willow tree and its sweeping views of the valley. It had sat empty for years, a beautiful relic gathering dust and stories. "Really? Who by?" Mrs. Gable leaned closer, her eyes bright with curiosity. "A gentleman came in yesterday, a young man, though not exactly a boy, very polite. Said he's an astronomer, of all things. Wants to set up an observatory, apparently. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? An astronomer." Ilara felt a peculiar flutter in her chest. An astronomer in Oakhaven. It was almost too perfect, like a wish she hadn't quite articulated had begun to take shape. She smiled, a genuine, warm smile. "How wonderful. I hope he likes our dark skies." Over the next few days, the arrival of the new resident, a Mr. Reese Cale, became the central topic of conversation. The delivery truck drivers who navigated the winding village roads reported seeing boxes and equipment being unloaded, some of it looking highly scientific and mysterious. Mr. Henderson, the postman, confirmed that Mr. Kale received several thick packages labeled telescope components and celestial charts. Even the usually stoic Mr. Peterson, who ran the general store, mentioned that the new gentleman had a discerning eye for good coffee beans and a surprisingly gentle manner. Ilara found herself thinking about him more than she expected. An astronomer. Someone who, like her, spent their nights gazing upwards. The thought was both thrilling and a little intimidating. Would he be a serious academic type, lost in equations and data, or someone who still found wonder in the simple act of looking up? She hoped for the latter. Days turned into a week, and Ilara hadn't yet seen him. She imagined him sequestered in Willowbrook House, surrounded by maps of the cosmos, perhaps too busy to venture into the village proper. She continued her routine, crafting pottery, tending her small herb garden, and watching the stars. But now, when she made her quiet wishes, a new element had subtly woven itself in, a silent hope for a chance encounter, a simple hello. The opportunity arose on a Saturday morning, the busiest day at the Oakhaven Farmers Market. Ilara had set up her stall beneath a sturdy oak tree, her ceramics gleaming softly in the morning sun. The air was filled with the cheerful din of bartering, the scent of fresh bread, blooming flowers, and roasted coffee. She was chatting with Mrs. Gable about the upcoming village fair when a shadow fell across her stall. "Good morning," a voice said, low and resonant, like the gentle strum of a cello string. Ilara looked up, and her breath caught, just for a moment. Standing before her was a man who seemed to have stepped right out of one of her daydreams. He was tall, with broad shoulders and kind eyes the color of warm honey, framed by laugh lines that hinted at a ready smile. His dark hair was a little rumpled, as if he'd been running his hands through it, and he carried himself with an easy grace that belied his intellectual profession. He wore a simple tweed jacket over a dark sweater, and a faint scent of old books and fresh air clung to him. "Good morning," Ilara managed, her voice a little softer than usual. She felt a blush creep up her neck, a sensation she hadn't experienced in years. He offered a warm, captivating smile, and Ilara noticed a small dimple appear in his left cheek. "These are beautiful," he said, gesturing to her pottery. His gaze lingered on a mug painted with a swirl of deep blues and purples, speckled with tiny white dots that resembled a distant galaxy. "Especially this one. It looks like a piece of the night sky." Ilara felt a thrill of recognition, a spark of understanding. "It's inspired by the Andromeda Galaxy," she explained, finding her voice. "I tried to capture its spiraling arms, the way it seems to hold so many secrets." His eyes lit up. "You've done it perfectly. I'm Rhys Kale, by the way. I believe we're neighbors, in a manner of speaking. I've just moved into Willowbrook House." He extended a hand, and his touch was warm and firm. "Ilara Vance," she replied, her hand feeling surprisingly small in his. "Welcome to Oakhaven, Mr. Kale." He chuckled softly. "Please call me Rhys, and it's a pleasure to finally meet the artist behind these wonderful creations. I've heard good things about your work from Mrs. Gable." He nodded towards the baker, who was beaming proudly from her own stall. "And I've heard good things about our new astronomer," Ilara countered, a playful note in her voice. "We're very proud of our dark skies here." "I've noticed," Rhys said, his gaze turning reflective for a moment. "They're magnificent. A revelation after years in light-polluted cities. I'm already planning my first deep sky observation night." He paused, looking back at her, his expression thoughtful. Do you often look at the stars, Ilara?" The question was simple, direct, and touched a chord deep within her. "Every night," she admitted, a shy smile gracing her lips. "I find them endlessly captivating. They have a way of putting things into perspective, don't they? And sometimes, if you listen closely, they even whisper a little." She almost bit her tongue, worried she sounded too fanciful. But Rhys's expression was one of genuine interest, not amusement. "Whisper," he repeated, his eyes twinkling. "I think I understand what you mean. The quiet stories they tell, the ancient light carrying messages across vast distances. There's a profound beauty in that." He picked up the Andromeda mug again, turning it gently in his hands. "I'd love to take this home if it's available. It feels like a piece of home already." Ilara's heart did another little flutter. "It's yours," she said, carefully wrapping the mug in tissue paper. "I hope it brings you many wonderful moments." I'm sure it will, Reese said, handing her a few coins. Thank you, Alara. It was a real pleasure meeting you. He gave her another one of his warm smiles, a smile that reached his eyes and seemed to promise future conversations under those very stars. As he walked away, the market suddenly seemed a little brighter, the air a little crisper. Alara watched him go, the ceramic artist's instinct in her appreciating the way the sunlight caught his dark hair, the confident stride, the way he paused to admire a basket of wildflowers before disappearing into the crowd. She felt a warmth spread through her, a quiet excitement that hummed beneath the surface of her usual calm. The rest of the market day passed in a blur. Alara found herself replaying their brief conversation, the way his eyes had crinkled when he smiled, the genuine interest in his voice when she spoke of the stars. He understood. He understood the whispers. It was a rare and wonderful thing to find someone who shared that particular lens through which she viewed the world. That evening, as the first stars began to prick the twilight sky, Alara sat by her window, her chamomile tea growing cool beside her. The usual quiet of her cottage felt different tonight, infused with a new, gentle energy. She pictured Reese, perhaps in Willowbrook House, sipping from the Andromeda mug, looking up at the very same sky. She closed her eyes and made a wish, not just upon the first star, but upon the memory of a warm smile and kind eyes. It was a wish for more conversations, more shared moments under the vast, whispering canvas above. The starlight whispers tonight felt particularly strong, carrying a melody of hope and soft anticipation. A few days later, Alara was busy in her studio, glazing a batch of delicate bowls, when she heard a gentle knock at her door. She wiped her hands on her apron and opened it to find Reese standing there, holding a small, potted cyclamen plant. "Good evening, Alara," he said, his smile as warm as she remembered. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all, Reese," she replied, her heart giving a happy little jump. "Please come in." He stepped into her studio, his gaze sweeping over the shelves laden with finished and unfinished pieces, the potter's wheel, the bags of clay. "This is wonderful," he commented, his voice filled with genuine appreciation. Such a calm, creative space. He held out the plant. "I brought you this, a small thank you for the beautiful mug. I've been using it every morning for my coffee, and it truly does feel like holding a piece of the night sky." Alara took the cyclamen, its vibrant pink blossoms a cheerful splash of color against the earthy tones of her studio. "It's lovely, thank you, Reese. You really didn't have to." "I wanted to," he said simply. "And I was wondering, since you're so knowledgeable about Oakhaven, perhaps you could recommend a good hiking trail. I'm trying to explore the area a bit more, beyond just the night sky." Alara felt a shy smile blossom on her face. "I'd be happy to. There's a beautiful trail up to Whisperwind Ridge with stunning views of the valley. It's a bit of a climb, but worth it." "Whisperwind Ridge," Reese repeated, his eyes thoughtful. "Sounds perfect. Would you perhaps consider showing me the way sometime? If you have a free afternoon, of course." The invitation hung in the air, light and hopeful. Alara's heart warmed. This wasn't just about a hiking trail, she knew. This was a gentle step forward, a shared moment under the vast open sky. It was a chance to explore not just the beauty of Oakhaven, but perhaps the nascent connection humming between them. "I would love to," Alara said, meeting his gaze, her voice soft but sure. "How about this coming Saturday? The weather forecast looks clear." Reese's smile widened, and that charming dimple reappeared. "Saturday sounds perfect, Alara. Thank you. I look forward to it." As he turned to leave, a comfortable quiet settled between them, filled with unspoken promises and the gentle hum of anticipation. Alara watched him walk away, the cyclamen plant cradled in her arms. The starlight whispers, she realized, weren't just about distant dreams anymore. They were about the tangible, beautiful moments unfolding right here, in the heart of Oakhaven, under a sky that seemed to hold its breath for what was to come. She placed the plant on her windowsill, next to her favorite stargazing spot, already imagining the conversations they might have, the shared silences, and the quiet joy of discovering new wonders, both in the world around them and, perhaps, in each other. The next morning, Clara woke with a lightness she hadn't felt in years, a quiet hum of anticipation beneath the surface of her usual morning routine. The first thing she saw, as the gentle Oakhaven light filtered through her window, was the small, vibrant plant. Its leaves, a deep emerald, seemed to glow, and a single, almost imperceptible bud nestled amongst them, promising future bloom. Finn had said it was a moonpetal vine, known for its delicate, fragrant flowers that opened only under the lunar glow. A perfect plant for someone who chased Starlight Whis. She traced a finger over a leaf, a smile playing on her lips. It wasn't just a plant. It was a tangible reminder of a connection, a kindness, a spark. As she made her coffee, the aroma of freshly ground beans mingling with the faint, earthy scent of the moon petal, she wondered if he was thinking of her too. Just as she was settling down with her mug, a soft rap sounded at her door. Her heart gave a little leap. It was almost as if her thoughts had conjured him. She opened it to find Finn standing there, a small wicker basket in one hand, a shy smile on his face. "Morning, Clara," he said, his voice a warm, low rumble. "I hope I'm not disturbing you. I was on my way to the bakery for some fresh bread and thought you might appreciate a little Oak Haven welcome breakfast." He held up the basket, revealing a tempting assortment: crusty artisan bread, a small jar of homemade berry jam, and a couple of warm, flaky croissants that smelled divine. "Finn, you didn't have to," she managed, a blush rising on her cheeks. "But, thank you. This is—" "No trouble at all," he replied, stepping inside when she gestured. His eyes immediately found the moon petal on her windowsill. A genuine, pleased smile spread across his face. "It looks good there. It'll thrive with that morning light." "It's beautiful," Clara said, feeling a warmth spread through her. "And the name, moon petal vine. It's perfect." They settled at her small kitchen table, the morning sun streaming in, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. As they shared the breakfast, he told her about the bakery, a family-run establishment known for its sourdough. He spoke of Mrs. Gable, the baker, who knew everyone's regular order and always had an extra cookie for the kids. Clara found herself captivated not just by his words, but by the quiet enthusiasm in his eyes, the way his hands gestured subtly as he spoke. He wasn't just talking about a bakery. He was talking about the heart of a community. "I imagine you'll get to know everyone quickly," he said, offering her another croissant. "Oak Haven has a way of drawing people in, making them feel like they belong." "I hope so," Clara admitted, taking a bite of the buttery pastry. "It feels different from anywhere I've lived before, in a good way." She hesitated, then added, "It feels like a place where dreams can take root." His gaze met hers, deep and understanding. "They can," he affirmed softly. "What kind of dreams are you hoping to plant here, Clara?" She found herself telling him, in more detail than she had shared with anyone else, about her observatory project. About the years of research, the grant application, the careful selection of Oak Haven for its clear, dark skies and its elevation. She spoke of her passion for astrophysics, of the profound wonder she felt gazing at distant galaxies, of her desire to make that wonder accessible to others. Finn listened intently, never interrupting, his eyes alight with genuine interest. "So, you're not just building a telescope," he mused when she finished. "You're building a window to the universe, and a classroom." "Exactly," she said, feeling a surge of excitement that he understood so completely. "It's about fostering curiosity, about reminding people how vast and incredible everything is, how connected we all are to the cosmos." "That's a beautiful mission, Clara," he said, his voice sincere. "And I have no doubt it will flourish here. If you ever need an extra pair of hands, or someone to run errands, just say the word. I know the lay of the land, and I'm pretty good with a hammer, if need be." His offer was so simple, so genuine, it warmed her to her core. "Thank you, Finn. I might just take you up on that." They talked for another hour, the conversation flowing effortlessly from her observatory to his work as a landscape architect, to the best hiking trails in the area, to their shared appreciation for strong coffee and quiet mornings. When he finally stood to leave, the empty basket in his hand, Clara felt a pang of reluctance. "Well," he said, "I should let you get to your day, but I'm around if you need anything." He paused at the door, his gaze lingering on her. "It was good seeing you, Clara, and the moon petal. Take good care of it." "I will," she promised, watching him go. The quiet left behind felt different now, imbued with the echo of their conversation, the lingering scent of coffee and fresh bread, and the soft presence of the moon petal vine. Oak Haven was beginning to feel less like a new place and more like home, piece by gentle piece. The days that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm, punctuated by unexpected encounters with Finn. He seemed to have an uncanny knack for appearing just when she needed something, or just when she found herself pausing for a moment, lost in thought. Once, she was struggling to carry a particularly heavy box of books into her new study, and he appeared, seemingly out of nowhere, to effortlessly lift it for her. Another time, she was attempting to decipher a complex local zoning document, and he offered a clear, concise explanation, having dealt with similar paperwork for his own projects. These weren't grand gestures, but small, consistent acts of kindness that stitched themselves into the fabric of her days, making them brighter, easier. Each interaction was accompanied by conversation, a gradual unfolding of their lives. She learned that Finn had grown up in a small town not unlike Oakhaven, fostering his love for nature and community. He'd left for a time to study landscape architecture in the city, but the quiet call of the mountains and the scent of pine had eventually drawn him back. "There's a certain honesty to life here," he'd explained one afternoon, as they sat on her porch, sipping iced tea. "Things move a little slower, perhaps, but they feel more real, more rooted." Clara understood. "Like the moon petal," she mused, glancing at the thriving plant on her windowsill. It had unfurled another leaf, its green deeper, richer. "It needs time to grow, to establish itself." "Exactly," Finn smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "And like a good view, you can't rush it. You have to wait for the clouds to clear, for the light to be just right." She found herself sharing more about her past, too. The years spent in bustling university labs, the isolation that sometimes came with intense academic pursuits, the subtle pressure to always be moving forward, achieving the next big thing. In Oakhaven with Finn, she felt a quiet permission to simply be. "I suppose I've always been chasing something distant," she confessed one evening, as they walked through the small-town park, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. "Distant stars, distant theories. It's exhilarating, but sometimes I feel like I've missed the beauty right in front of me." Finn stopped, turning to face her. The golden light of dusk softened his features. "Perhaps," he said gently, "you just needed to find the right place to truly see it. The beauty has always been there, Clara. Now you have a place to ground yourself, to truly appreciate it." His words resonated deeply. It was true. Oakhaven, with its gentle pace and its welcoming warmth, was slowly teaching her to look closer, to breathe deeper. One afternoon, Finn invited her to his workshop, a charming, rustic building nestled behind his own small, perfectly manicured cottage garden. It was a space filled with the scent of sawdust and earth, lined with tools she didn't recognize, and dotted with sketches of intricate garden designs. He was carving a small wooden bird, its wings delicately spread as if in flight. "It's a gift for Mrs. Gable," he explained, noticing her gaze. "For her birthday next week. She loves wrens." Clara watched, fascinated, as his strong, capable hands worked with such precision and tenderness. There was an artistry to his movements, a quiet dedication that spoke volumes about his character. "You're very talented," she said, genuinely impressed. "It's beautiful." "It's just another way of connecting with nature," he shrugged, a modest smile on his face. "Taking something raw and shaping it, coaxing out its inherent beauty." He then showed her some of his landscape designs, blueprints for community gardens, serene backyard oses, and even a proposal for a new walking path along the Oakhaven River. Each design was meticulously detailed, blending aesthetics with functionality, always with an eye toward sustainability and enhancing the natural environment. "This is incredible, Finn," she said, looking at a design for a sensory garden for the local elementary school. "You're not just designing gardens. You're creating spaces for people to connect, to heal, to learn." "That's the hope," he replied, his gaze soft as he looked at the drawing. "A garden, much like a sky full of stars, has a way of reminding us of something bigger than ourselves." As they talked, an idea sparked in Clara's mind. "Finn," she began, "I've been thinking about the grounds around the observatory. It's a beautiful spot, but it's a bit wild right now. Once the building is up, I'd love to have a welcoming space around it. Something that feels connected to the natural landscape, but also functional for visitors. Perhaps a small seating area or a path leading up to the entrance." His eyes lit up. "Clara, that's a wonderful idea. A place where people can gather before or after a viewing, to reflect, to talk. We could incorporate native Oakhaven plants, maybe even a small stargazer's garden with plants that thrive under moonlight, or have names inspired by constellations." The enthusiasm in his voice was infectious. They spent the next hour brainstorming, sketching ideas on a large pad of paper, their heads close together. He spoke of drought-resistant shrubs, fragrant herbs, and the best placement for benches to catch both the sunset and the rising moon. Clara contributed ideas for educational plaques and integrating solar-powered lighting. It was a perfect blend of their passions, a shared vision taking shape. "This is going to be magnificent," she breathed, looking at their collaborative sketch. "Thank you, Finn. This feels right." He met her gaze, his smile warm. "It does, doesn't it, working together on something that brings beauty and wonder to Oakhaven?" Their collaboration on the observatory gardens became a natural excuse for them to spend more time together. They visited nurseries, walked the observatory grounds, discussing soil types and drainage, the placement of trees, and the flow of pathways. Clara found herself looking forward to these excursions with a flutter in her chest she hadn't felt since her teenage years. One particularly warm afternoon, as they were measuring out a potential path, Finn paused, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. "Tell me, Clara," he began, his voice thoughtful. "What was it about Oakhaven specifically that made you choose it for your observatory? Besides the clear skies, of course." She considered his question. "It wasn't just the skies," she admitted, leaning against a sturdy oak tree. "It was the feeling. From the moment I drove into town, there was this sense of community, of people who cared about each other, about their environment. And I wanted my observatory to be a part of that, not just a sterile research facility. I wanted it to be a place where the community felt welcome, where they could connect with the universe and with each other." She looked at him, her gaze earnest. "And then I met you, and you embodied everything I'd hoped Oakhaven would be. Kind, thoughtful, connected to the land, passionate about creating beauty." A soft blush spread across his cheeks, and his eyes dropped momentarily before meeting hers again, a new intensity in their depths. That's quite a compliment, Clara." "It's the truth," she said simply, her heart thrumming. The air between them felt charged, suddenly thicker with unspoken feelings. He took a step closer, reaching out to gently brush a stray strand of hair from her face. His touch was light, yet it sent a shiver through her. "And you, Clara," he said, his voice a low murmur. "You bring a different kind of light to Oakhaven. A light from the stars, yes, but also a warmth, a curiosity, a spirit of wonder that's captivating." Their eyes held, and for a moment, the world around them seemed to fade, leaving only the two of them, the whispering leaves of the oak, and the accelerating beat of her heart. She felt an undeniable pull, a magnetic force drawing her closer. She saw a question in his eyes, an invitation she longed to accept. But then, a distant car horn blared, breaking the spell. Finn cleared his throat, his hand dropping. "Well," he said, a little too brightly, "we should probably get back to these measurements before the sun gets too low." The moment was gone, leaving Clara with a mixture of longing and a faint sense of disappointment. Yet, beneath it all, a quiet thrill remained. He felt it too. She knew it. That evening, back in her cottage, Clara couldn't stop thinking about the moment, about the warmth of his fingers on her skin, the look in his eyes. She looked at the moon-petal vine, which had put out another tiny bud. It felt like a mirror to her own heart, slowly, delicately, preparing to bloom. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Construction on the observatory began in earnest, bringing with it a flurry of permits, contractors, and logistical challenges. Clara found herself juggling her research work with overseeing the project, often feeling overwhelmed. Finn, true to his word, became an invaluable ally. He helped her navigate the labyrinthine local bureaucracy, recommended trustworthy tradespeople, and even spent several evenings after his own work hours, helping her clear some of the brush from the observatory site, transforming it from a wild patch of land into a more accessible space. One particularly frustrating afternoon, a shipment of critical equipment for the telescope was delayed, threatening to push back their entire timeline. Clara was on the phone, her voice tight with stress, when Finn arrived with a thermos of hot tea and a bag of Mrs. Gable's ginger snaps. He listened patiently as she recounted the problem, her frustration bubbling over. When she finished, he simply poured her a cup of tea, handed her a cookie, and said, "It's all right, Clara. These things happen. We'll figure it out. Is there anything I can do to help with the shipping company?" His calm presence was a balm to her frayed nerves. "Just being here helps, Finn," she confessed, taking a grateful sip of tea. Thank you. Anytime, he said, his gaze warm. You're building something incredible here, Clara. Don't let a few bumps in the road dim your star. His unwavering support, his quiet strength, and his ability to make her laugh even when she felt like tearing her hair out, solidified her feelings for him. She found herself relying on him, not just for practical help, but for emotional comfort. He was becoming her anchor in Oakhaven. One crisp autumn evening, after a particularly productive day on the observatory site, Finn suggested a picnic dinner by the Oakhaven River. The air was cool and smelled of damp earth and fallen leaves. He had packed a delicious meal, roasted chicken, a fresh salad, and a bottle of sparkling cider, all laid out on a soft blanket beneath a canopy of ancient sycamores. As twilight deepened, painting the sky in soft mauves and grays, they talked about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up fishing in this very river, about the stories his grandfather used to tell him about the constellations. Clara shared anecdotes from her own childhood, of eagerly devouring science fiction novels and spending countless nights with a cheap telescope in her backyard. I always felt like there was more out there, she said, gazing at the darkening sky, more to discover, more to understand. It was a constant pull. And you followed it, Finn observed, his voice soft. That takes courage, Clara, to chase a distant light even when it feels out of reach. She turned to him, her heart full. It's easier when you have someone to share the journey with, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Someone who understands the beauty of both the distant stars and the quiet moments right here on Earth. He reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. His touch was gentle, firm, sending a comforting warmth through her. I think, he said, his thumb stroking the back of her hand, we both understand that, Clara. The moon began to rise, a pale sliver in the vast expanse of the sky. The river murmured softly, a timeless lullaby. In the deepening quiet, Clara felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. It wasn't just the beauty of the moment, or the comfort of Finn's presence. It was the realization that she was exactly where she was meant to be, with exactly the person she was meant to be with. Finn, she began, her voice a little shaky. But before she could articulate the rush of feelings, he leaned closer, his gaze locked with hers. Clara, he murmured, his voice husky. I feel it too. This connection. It's unlike anything I've ever known. His eyes dropped to her lips, and then back to her eyes, seeking permission. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't need to speak. Her answer was in the slight tilt of her head, the soft parting of her lips, the unspoken invitation in her gaze. He closed the small distance between them, his lips brushing hers with a tenderness that made her heart ache in the most exquisite way. It was a kiss that was slow and tentative at first, a question and an answer, then deepening with a quiet intensity, a promise of everything they had been building. It tasted of autumn air, starlight, and the sweet, unspoken longing that had grown between them. When they finally broke apart, breathless, his forehead rested against hers. Clara, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. She could only smile, a joyous, tremulous smile. The world felt utterly perfect in that moment. The stars were beginning to emerge, pinpricks of light against the darkening canvas, but for the first time in her life, Clara felt that the brightest star was right here, beside her, holding her hand. They stayed like that for a long time, simply holding hands, watching the stars appear one by one, the silence between them no longer a gap to be filled, but a comfortable, shared space. The air grew colder, but Clara felt a warmth radiating from Finn that chased away the chill. You know, Finn said eventually, breaking the comfortable silence, the town is having its annual harvest festival next weekend. It's a big event. Lots of local crafts, food stalls, a bonfire. The whole community turns out. Clara smiled. It sounds wonderful. Would you like to go with me? He asked, his thumb gently stroking her hand. As a date? Her smile widened. I'd love to, Finn. The thought of experiencing Oakhaven's traditions, its vibrant community spirit, with Finn by her side filled her with a joyful anticipation. It wasn't just about the festival. It was about stepping into this new life, hand in hand with someone who made her feel seen, cherished, and utterly, wonderfully alive. As they packed up the picnic, the moon, now a slender crescent, cast a silvery glow over the river. Clara felt a profound sense of gratitude. Her observatory, Her dream was taking shape. But more than that, her life in Oakhaven with Finn was unfolding in ways she never dared to imagine. The Starlight Whispers, she realized, truly were about tangible, beautiful moments, made all the more luminous by the love that was blossoming in her heart. She imagined the harvest festival, the warmth of the bonfire, the laughter, and Finn's hand in hers, a feeling of belonging that felt as vast and wondrous as the universe she so dearly loved. The journey was just beginning, and she knew, with every fiber of her being, that it was going to be an extraordinary one. The journey was just beginning, and she knew with every fiber of her being that it was going to be an extraordinary one. The next morning, Lyra woke with a lightness she hadn't felt since childhood, a sense of shimmering possibility that infused the very air she breathed. The observatory, usually a sanctuary of quiet focus, now hummed with a different kind of energy, one that resonated with the burgeoning life in her own heart. She found herself humming as she made her herbal tea, a soft, tuneless melody, her gaze lingering on the window, half expecting, half hoping to see Finn's familiar silhouette approaching. He arrived a little later than usual, carrying a basket laden with fresh pastries from the village bakery, their sweet scent wafting into the observatory even before he stepped through the door. "Morning, Lyra," he said, his voice a warm rumble, a smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. He looked different to her today, or perhaps it was her own perception that had shifted. There was a new clarity to the way she saw him, the strength in his forearms, the way his hair fell across his brow, the genuine kindness that seemed to radiate from him. "Good morning, Finn," she replied, her voice a little breathier than she intended. She felt a blush creep up her neck, a sensation both unfamiliar and not entirely unwelcome. "What's all this?" She gestured to the basket. "Harvest festival preparations," he explained, setting the basket on her small kitchen table. "The bakery's already in full swing. Thought you might appreciate a break from your usual toast." He pulled out a flaky apple turnover, its crust glistening with sugar. Lyra took it, her fingers brushing his for a fleeting moment that sent a surprising jolt through her. "Thank you," she murmured, looking down at the pastry, suddenly finding it fascinating. I hadn't realized the festival preparations started so early." "Oh, they start weeks in advance," Finn chuckled. "Especially the food and the decorations. The whole village transforms. Have you ever really experienced it, Lyra?" She looked up, meeting his gaze. Not really, no. I've always been up here observing. The light pollution from the bonfires can sometimes interfere with my work." She felt a pang of regret for all the years she had prioritized her solitary observations over shared human warmth. Finn's expression softened. "Well, this year," he said, his voice laced with gentle conviction. "This year you're going to experience it. Properly, I insist." He paused, then added, almost shyly, "Perhaps with me?" Lyra's heart gave a little leap. I would like that very much, Finn," she managed, a genuine smile blooming on her face, a smile that reached her eyes and sparkled with a renewed light. Over the next few days, a quiet rhythm settled between them, punctuated by moments of growing intimacy. Finn was a frequent presence at the observatory, not just for repairs or supplies, but often just to chat, to share a cup of tea, or to sit beside her as she worked, reading a book or sketching. Lyra found herself looking forward to his visits with an eagerness that surprised her. She even started venturing out more, drawn by the increasing buzz of the village. She saw the villagers stringing garlands of dried autumn leaves and berries, painting vibrant harvest scenes on wooden signs, and arranging bountiful displays of pumpkins and gourds outside their shops. The air grew crisp and sweet with the scent of wood smoke and baking spices. Finn, it turned out, was at the heart of much of the activity, his strong hands and cheerful demeanor making him an invaluable helper. One afternoon, Lyra found him in the village square, helping assemble a tall, intricately carved wooden archway that would serve as the entrance to the main festival grounds. He was covered in sawdust, his brow furrowed in concentration, but when he saw her approaching, his face broke into a wide, easy smile. "Lyra, what brings you down from the stars?" he teased gently, wiping his hands on a rag. "Curiosity," she admitted, her gaze sweeping over the vibrant scene. "And a sudden craving for Mrs. Gable's spiced cider. It smells divine." "It does," he agreed. Want to lend a hand? We could use someone with an eye for detail to help arrange the cornstalks around the base. Lyra, usually hesitant to engage in such communal tasks, found herself nodding. She carefully arranged the rustling stalks, tying them with twine, her fingers surprisingly deft. Working alongside Finn, she felt a connection, a shared purpose that was both grounding and exhilarating. They talked about the village history, the meaning behind some of the older traditions, and Finn recounted humorous anecdotes about past festivals. My favorite part is always the storytelling by the bonfire, Finn confessed, his voice dropping to a softer tone as they paused for a moment, leaning against the unfinished archway. The elders tell tales of the first harvests, of the land, and of the star-crossed lovers whose spirits are said to dance in the aurora borealis. Lyra's breath caught. Star-crossed lovers. She looked at him, her heart thrumming. You believe in those stories? He met her gaze, his eyes warm and sincere. I believe in the power of stories, Lyra, and I believe in the magic of shared moments under the vastness of the sky, don't you? She did. More than ever. As the festival drew closer, the anticipation in the village became almost palpable. Lyra felt it too, a nervous flutter in her stomach that had nothing to do with astronomical events and everything to do with Finn. She started paying more attention to her clothes, choosing softer fabrics, warmer colors, a little less utilitarian than her usual observatory attire. One evening, a few nights before the festival, Finn came up to the observatory with a small, beautifully carved wooden box. For you, he said, holding it out. Lyra took it, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns. What is it? A stargazing compass, he explained. My grandfather made it. He used to say it pointed not just north, but to the heart of the heavens. Thought you might find it useful. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, was a small antique brass compass, its needle gleaming. But instead of the usual cardinal directions, it had tiny, delicate engravings of constellations. Finn, she whispered, deeply touched. It's exquisite, but you shouldn't have. It must be a family heirloom. It is, he said, his smile gentle. And it belongs with someone who truly understands the stars, someone who truly loves them. He looked at her, his gaze holding hers. Just as I believe, it belongs with someone who truly understands and appreciates the beauty of the world beneath them. Lyra felt a wave of emotion wash over her. His words were a balm to her soul, an affirmation of her passions, both celestial and earthly. Thank you, Finn, she said, her voice thick with feeling. She reached out, impulsively, and took his hand, her fingers closing around his warm, strong ones. His thumb gently stroked the back of her hand, sending shivers down her arm. They stood there for a long moment, the quiet hum of the observatory and the vast, silent expanse of the night sky outside bearing witness to the unspoken tenderness that bloomed between them. The starlight that streamed through the dome seemed to wrap around them, a luminous embrace. Lyra felt a profound sense of peace, a feeling of finally being truly seen, truly valued, truly loved. The day of the harvest festival dawned bright and clear, the autumn sun casting long golden shadows across the village. Lyra had spent the morning preparing, choosing a soft emerald green dress that echoed the colors of the forest, and braiding a few small wildflowers into her hair. As she descended the winding path from the observatory, her heart was aflutter, a mix of excitement and a delightful nervousness. The village was transformed. The archway Finn had helped build was now adorned with glowing lanterns and garlands of fiery leaves. Stands overflowed with roasted nuts, candied apples, and steaming mugs of cider. Music drifted through the air, the lively strumming of fiddles, the rhythmic beat of drums, and the joyful laughter of children. The scent of wood smoke, roasted meats, and sweet spices mingled, creating an intoxicating aroma. She found Finn near the central bonfire, which was already being stoked, sending plumes of fragrant smoke into the crisp air. He wore a simple dark tunic that highlighted the breadth of his shoulders, and his smile, when he saw her, was like the sun breaking through clouds. Lyra, he said, his voice warm with approval as his eyes swept over her. You look stunning. A blush bloomed on her cheeks, but she met his gaze with newfound confidence. And you, Finn, look like the very spirit of the harvest. He chuckled, offering her his arm. Shall we explore then, my cosmic companion? Lyra slipped her arm through his. the warmth of his presence a comforting anchor amidst the joyful chaos. They wandered through the bustling marketplace, Finn pointing out local artisans, sharing stories about their crafts. He bought her a small, intricately carved wooden bird, explaining it was a symbol of freedom and hope. She, in turn, found a pair of beautiful, star-shaped silver earrings for him, though perhaps they were more for her to enjoy seeing him wear. They sampled warm gingerbread, spicy pumpkin soup, and crisp apple slices dipped in caramel. Finn seemed to know everyone, greeting villagers with a ready smile and a kind word, and Lyra felt a quiet pride walking beside him, feeling included in the warmth of his community. She'd always observed humanity from a distance, but now, holding Finn's arm, surrounded by the vibrant tapestry of human connection, she felt profoundly a part of it. As dusk began to settle, the lanterns around the village flickered to life, casting a warm, golden glow. The central bonfire roared, sending sparks dancing like tiny stars into the darkening sky. People gathered around, some dancing to the lively music, others simply basking in the warmth and camaraderie. Finn led Lyra to a quieter spot on the edge of the square, beneath a large ancient oak tree whose leaves rustled like hushed secrets. From here, they could still see the festivities, hear the music, and feel the gentle heat of the bonfire, but they had a moment of shared tranquility. "It's beautiful, Finn," Lyra said, her voice soft with wonder. "More beautiful than I ever imagined. To see it, to truly feel it. It's overwhelming in the most wonderful way." He turned to her, his hand gently finding hers, his fingers intertwining with hers. "I told you it would be. There's a magic in gathering, in sharing, in simply being present with each other." He paused, his thumb stroking the back of her hand. "And to share it with you, Lyra, makes it even more magical." Her heart swelled. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. In his gaze, she saw not just affection, but a deep understanding, a quiet admiration that mirrored her own growing feelings. The Starlight Whispers, she realized, weren't just about the grand cosmic dance, but about the profound, intimate connection between two souls, finding their way to each other under that vast, benevolent sky. "Finn," she began, her voice barely a whisper, "I've spent my life looking up, searching for answers in the distant stars. I never imagined I'd find so much wonder, so much light right here on Earth." She squeezed his hand gently. "With you? Dot?" A tender smile played on his lips. He lifted their joined hands, bringing hers to his chest, over his heart. Lyra could feel the steady beat beneath her palm. "And I," he said, his voice a rich, low murmur, "have always found my wonder in the rhythms of the earth, in the simple beauty of this life. But since meeting you, Lyra, I found myself looking up more often, seeing the stars through your eyes. It's a whole new universe." His gaze dropped to her lips, and Lyra's breath hitched. The world seemed to narrow, the sounds of the festival fading into a soft hum. All that existed was the warmth of his hand, the steady beat of his heart, and the unspoken language passing between their eyes. Slowly, gently, Finn leaned closer, his eyes asking a question she eagerly answered with her own. His lips met hers, soft and hesitant at first, then deepening with a quiet intensity that stole her breath away. It was not a kiss of fiery passion, but one of profound tenderness, a promise whispered between souls, a gentle affirmation of all the unspoken sentiments that had blossomed between them. It tasted of spiced cider and autumn leaves, and the sweet dizzying promise of forever. When they finally broke apart, Lyra felt as though she had been bathed in starlight. She leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling utterly content, utterly safe. Finn's arm wrapped around her, holding her close. They stood there for a long time, watching the bonfire blaze, listening to the distant music, and feeling the comforting presence of each other. Above them, the first stars began to pierce the twilight, faint at first, then growing brighter, like tiny diamonds scattered across an indigo cloth. "Look," Lyra murmured, pointing upwards. "Lyra's harp, and there Cassiopeia the queen." Finn followed her gaze, his arm tightening around her. "They look even more beautiful tonight," he said, his voice a soft melody against her hair. The festival continued around them, a symphony of joy and light, but for Lyra, the true festival was in the quiet intimacy of that moment, held close by Finn under the watchful eyes of her beloved stars. It was a perfect convergence of her two worlds, earth and sky, all brought together by the most profound force of all, love. As the night deepened and the revelry began to wind down, Finn walked Lyra back up the winding path to the observatory. The air had grown colder, but Lyra felt a warmth that radiated from within. They walked in comfortable silence, their hands intertwined, the rhythm of their steps echoing the peaceful beat of their hearts. When they reached the observatory, the telescope dome stood silhouetted against the star-dusted sky, a silent sentinel. Finn stopped at the threshold, turning to face her. "Thank you, Finn," Lyra said, looking up at him, her eyes shining. "For everything. For showing me the festival. For being with me. For—" She trailed off, unable to articulate the depth of her gratitude and newfound happiness. He simply smiled, a gentle, understanding smile, and reached out to tuck a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "It was my pleasure, Lyra. My absolute pleasure." He hesitated, then leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "Sleep well, my stargazer." Lyra watched him walk down the path, his figure gradually disappearing into the moonlit shadows. She touched her fingers to her lips, still tingling from his kiss. The observatory felt different now, no longer just a place of solitary study, but a home infused with the echoes of shared laughter, whispered confidences, and the burgeoning promise of love. She knew with a certainty that settled deep in her soul that this was just the beginning. The Harvest Festival had been a beautiful chapter, a vibrant celebration of their growing bond. But the journey ahead, under the watchful eyes of the stars, held even more untold wonders. There were more seasons to share, more stories to discover, more moments of quiet magic to weave into the tapestry of their extraordinary love. And Lyra, for the first time in her life, was ready for every single one of them. The days that followed the Harvest Festival melted into a rhythm Lyra hadn't known she craved. Elias's presence became as natural as the sunrise, his quiet strength a comforting anchor in her newly unfurled world. They fell into easy routines, shared breakfasts of warm porridge and strong coffee, the scent of wood smoke clinging to their clothes as they went about their days. Lyra would often find herself at the farm, not just observing, but helping. She learned the gentle art of mending fences, the quiet patience required for feeding the chickens, the satisfaction of harvesting the last hardy root vegetables before the first frost. Winter arrived in Hearthwood with a hush, painting the world in shades of white and silver. The village transformed into a wonderland, the air crisp and clean, carrying the scent of pine and burning logs. Evenings were spent by Elias's hearth, the fire casting dancing shadows on the walls as they talked for hours, or simply sat in companionable silence, reading or watching the flames. Lyra learned about Elias's childhood, his dreams for the farm, the quiet grief he carried from losing his parents too soon. And in turn, she shared more of herself, the restlessness that had driven her from city to city, the unexpected peace she'd found here, the way his presence had calmed a storm she hadn't even realized raged within her. One blustery evening, as snow piled high against the window panes, Lyra watched Elias carve a small wooden bird, his brow furrowed in concentration. "You make this place feel like home," she murmured, the words surprising even herself. He looked up, his blue eyes soft. "It is home, Lyra, for both of us now." His hand reached for hers, intertwining their fingers, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. As winter deepened, so too did their bond with the village. The annual Hearthwood Winter Fair was approaching, and Elias, being a respected figure, was organizing the community feast. Lyra, instead of merely attending, found herself deeply involved, helping with decorations, coordinating with Mrs. Gable for her famous gingerbread, and even designing the fair's promotional flyers with her artistic eye. It was a joyful chaos, and Lyra, once a lone wanderer, thrived amidst the bustling camaraderie. One afternoon, while sorting donations for the fair's charity auction, Lyra overheard a hushed conversation between two elderly villagers about the old bell tower. It stood at the heart of Hearthwood, a beloved landmark, but years of neglect had left it in disrepair. The cost of restoration was prohibitive, a fact that weighed heavily on the community's spirit. That evening, Lyra brought it up to Elias. "It's such a shame," she said, stirring her tea. "That tower is beautiful, full of history." Elias sighed. "It is, but the village funds are stretched thin. We've tried to get grants, but it's a slow process. A spark ignited in Lyra. What if the winter fair could raise enough, not for the whole restoration, but enough to kickstart it, to show there's momentum? Elias looked at her, a thoughtful smile playing on his lips. It's a grand idea, Lyra, but it would mean a lot more work, a lot more organizing. I'm ready for it, she said, her voice firm. We're ready for it. The villagers love that tower. They just need a reason to believe it's possible. And so, the Bell Tower Restoration Fund became the focal point of the winter fair. Lyra threw herself into the project with an energy Elias found both captivating and inspiring. She rallied volunteers, organized a silent auction with donated handcrafted goods from local artisans, and even convinced the mayor to match a portion of the funds raised. Elias, ever her steady partner, helped with the logistics, his calm presence a balm to her occasional bursts of creative frenzy. Their collaboration was seamless, a beautiful dance of complementary strengths. Through it all, Lyra felt a sense of purpose she'd never experienced before. It wasn't just about the tower. It was about investing in a place, in people, in a future. She saw Elias's pride in her, not just in her efforts, but in the woman she was becoming. She was no longer just Lyra, the transient photographer. She was Lyra, the heart of Hearthwood, a vital part of its fabric. The winter fair was a resounding success. The village square buzzed with laughter, the scent of mulled wine and roasted chestnuts filling the air. The Bell Tower Fund not only met its initial goal but surpassed it, thanks to Lyra's tireless efforts and the generosity of the community. That night, as the final carols faded and the last stalls were packed away, Elias found Lyra standing alone by the silent bell tower, looking up at its snow-dusted spire. "You did it," he said, wrapping an arm around her, pulling her close. "You gave them hope, Lyra." She leaned into his embrace, feeling the warmth of his body chase away the winter chill. "We did it, Elias, all of us." He turned her to face him, his gaze serious, tender. "Lyra," he began, his voice a low rumble. "When you first came here, I thought you were just passing through. A beautiful, bright comet, destined to leave its trail elsewhere." She smiled faintly. "I thought so too. But you stayed," he continued, gently brushing a snowflake from her hair. "And you've woven yourself into the very soul of this place, and into mine. I can't imagine Hearthwood without you now. I can't imagine my life without you." His words hung in the crisp night air, heavy with unspoken questions and profound affection. Lyra's heart hammered against her ribs, a joyous drumbeat. This was it. The moment she'd been unknowingly waiting for her entire life. Over the next few weeks, as the days gradually lengthened, they spoke more openly about their future. Not just the bell tower, but Waiari Tower, the foundation of their life together. Elias spoke of expanding the farm, perhaps adding an orchard, and Lyra, with a newfound sense of belonging, envisioned turning the unused annex of his farmhouse into a small studio, a place where she could truly settle her roots and create. One afternoon, as they walked through the fields, the first tentative shoots of spring greening the thawing earth, Elias stopped by the ancient oak that marked the boundary of his land. He turned to Lyra, his hand reaching into his pocket. "Lyra," he said, his voice husky with emotion, "I don't have grand speeches or fancy words. I only have my heart, and this farm, and a future I want to build with you every single day, for the rest of our lives." He knelt then, not on one knee, but both, a gesture of profound humility and unwavering devotion. In his outstretched hand lay a simple, elegant silver ring, adorned with a tiny, perfectly cut sapphire, the color of his eyes in the deepest winter sky. "Will you be my wife, Lyra? Will you build a home with me here, in Hearthwood and in our hearts?" Tears welled in Lyra's eyes, hot and sweet, blurring the vibrant green of the budding landscape. This wasn't a question of if, but when. It was a recognition of a truth that had been quietly blooming between them, as certain and beautiful as the spring flowers that would soon carpet the fields. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Oh, Elias, yes." He rose, pulling her into a fierce, tender embrace, and then slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, a symbol of belonging, a promise of forever. They stood there for a long time, holding each other under the watchful gaze of the old oak, the world around them quiet, save for the gentle rustle of the budding leaves and the beating of their two hearts, now perfectly attuned. Their wedding, held in late summer, was everything Lyra had dreamed of, though she hadn't known she had such dreams until Elias. It was a sun-drenched celebration in Elias's meadow, beneath a canopy of wildflowers, the air sweet with their fragrance. The entire village of Hearthwood gathered, a testament to the love and respect they had for the couple who had so deeply invested in their community. Mrs. Gable baked a magnificent cake, the children strewed petals, and the newly restored bell tower chimed joyously, its clear, resonant sound echoing across the valley, a beautiful metaphor for their bright future. Lyra, radiant in a simple ivory gown, felt a profound sense of peace as she exchanged vows with Elias. His hand, calloused from years of working the land, felt strong and infinitely comforting in hers. When he looked at her, his eyes shining with adoration, she saw not just a partner, but her anchor, her home, her truest self reflected back. Life in Hearthwood continued its gentle, fulfilling pace. Lyra established her studio in the annex, her photographs now capturing the breathtaking beauty of the village and its people, her art infused with the love she felt for her home. Elias's farm thrived, and together they worked the land, planting new crops, nurturing their animals, and always nurturing their love. They spent their evenings walking through the fields, hand in hand, or sitting by the fire, sharing stories, dreams, and quiet moments of profound contentment. Sometimes, Lyra would pause, looking out at the rolling hills, at the smoke curling from the village chimneys, at Elias working in the distance, and she would marvel at how her life had transformed. The restless wanderer had found her sanctuary, not in a place, but in a person. Elias hadn't just given her a home. He had shown her how to be home, how to root herself in love, in community, in purpose. One crisp autumn evening, long after the harvest was in and the leaves had turned to fiery gold, they sat on their porch swing, a warm blanket draped over their shoulders. Lyra leaned her head against Elias's shoulder, listening to the crickets sing their nightly symphony. "Remember when I first arrived?" she murmured, a soft smile on her lips. "I thought I'd just take some pictures and move on." Elias chuckled, tightening his arm around her. "I remember, but something told me you were different. Something told me you were meant to stay." "And I did," she said, looking up at him, her heart overflowing. "I stayed, and I wouldn't trade a single moment of it." He kissed the top of her head. "Nor I, my love." The stars twinkled above them, ancient and eternal, just as they had on that first harvest festival night. But now, Lyra knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her soul, that their story was no longer just beginning. It was flourishing, a vibrant tapestry woven with shared laughter, quiet understanding, gentle touches, and an enduring love that promised endless seasons of joy. Their journey ahead, under the watchful eyes of those same stars, was not of untold wonders, but of wonders unfolding, day by day, moment by moment, in the quiet magic of their extraordinary ordinary life together. A perfect, heartwarming dream come true.